Okay, welcome, world. We are very happy to welcome you to the second episode of Unfiltered, brought to you by the International Insolvency Institute. I'm Robert Hanel.
And I'm Steve Golden.
So we're very pleased to bring you an interview we did with Henrique Meirelles, who was the keynote speaker at the III's 25th annual conference in Sao Paulo this last June.
We were really lucky to have the opportunity to interview Enrique in person. And what we thought was going to be just a short 5-minute chat turned into a 15 or 20-minute discussion.
That's right. Enrique is quite a legend in Brazil. It's impossible to summarize his career in just a few words, but highlights are that he was the president of the Central Bank of Brazil from 2003 to 2011, the Brazilian Minister of Finance from 2016 to 2018, and the MDB's candidate for president of Brazil in 2018 even.
His Wikipedia pages, it really is a gold mine, and you can look at that and see his incredible career. So we really hope you enjoy our discussion with Enrique, which, as always, is not just limited to insolvency and restructuring. And be on the lookout for a very special guest who just joins us partway through our interview with him. Hope you enjoy.
No, it was a coincidence. I was in 2000. I was living in the U.S. But basically, I came to Brazil to participate in a seminar, and the seminar talked about several things, and one of the speeches was about how to use psychology in the workplace to understand people's reaction and how in managing people, etc. And the speaker was German, and he did not speak English, and evidently not Portuguese. Then there was a simultaneous translation, and my wife was the translator because she was a psychiatrist and a German born, and the family is still in German, and sister, etc. And the fact is that there's where we met, and I was still living in the US, but we began to date. When I came to Brazil, she went to the US. Eventually, she moved to the US, but then sometime later, I came back to Brazil and decided then to join the public sector at that time.
Okay, interesting. So the translator was more interesting than the contract.
Yeah.
As it turns out, yes.
Yeah.
One funny thing or interesting thing about your career, and it was mentioned when Thomas announced you, is that you had a lot of career changes. Like the first one was you studied engineering. You started studying engineering, and then you changed to the financial sector, and then you had every kind of different jobs in the economy, in politics, in whatever. How come? Do you feel the need to change from time to time, or was that by accident, or?
No, it's as a question of. I studied engineering, but my conclusion is that I like more economics and etc. And even when I studied engineering, we had economic courses, courses on economy and management. And then after I finished my work, my study at the engineering school, I made an application for then a master's degree in economics, and I did that. But when I was there, by the end of the period, when I was finishing my master's degree requirements, etc., I was walking down the corridor and saw a class room in which the teacher was standing, but surrounded by students around, not the regular classroom with people like that. And they were talking. and by coincidence, the director of the program, the economic and actually there was a management as well, the MBA, and he was coming. I met him. His name was Moisés Swirsky, and I asked Moisés, how is that? During a period of classes, there is a teacher here who is simply talking to the students and not giving the classes. He said, no, it's because he was an American, and he actually is using here the case study method, which is the one applied by Harvard Business School, and he came from Harvard as well, and then he used it. Said, can I participate in that discussion as well? Sure. And I joined, and actually enjoyed it, that kind of discussion. That basically, it was a managed MBA program. I then finished the economy master degree requirements and joined the MBA program. Finished what it was necessary to. At that time in Brazil, for the MBA, you had to write a thesis as well. I did that, etc. And actually, that professor invited me to write a study for his company where he worked actually, who actually happened to be a bank. It was Bank Boston. He was the vice president of the bank. And he invited me to do a study for the bank on economics. I did that, and eventually he called me for that to know the bank better. At some point, he made me a proposal to join the bank. I said, okay. I had enjoyed the environment in the bank. The bank had a problem for someone at that time. Like me, because I was Brazilian, the bank was American, which was fine, but at that time, no Brazilian had ever achieved the presidents of the bank or general management position in Brazil. It was only Americans, and even some key positions. Said, yet it was the lowest salary amongst the proposals I had gotten. Got a proposal from Brazilian National Development Bank. The state bank was the highest salary, and it was stable. A very large retail company in Brazil. At that time, I would be assistant to the president, etc. Very interesting job as well. But there was this proposal from Bank Boston, which was the lowest salary. It had the limitation for
the career
path. Growth. But I said, well, I think when I chose that, my friend said, well, why did you do that? I said, well, I think it's an opportunity to learn more. It's an international bank, etc. It is a good opportunity. So then I will join the bank, stay for 2 years, learn what, and then got another job in which I can grow up in the company and earn more. So evidently, that was not the way the things evolved. I stayed with the bank for 29 years and became the global president of the bank. Things changed.
Things worked out a different way, but it all came from you wanting to have an opportunity to learn in a different way.
Yeah.
So the initial investment paid off.
It was a interesting thing. One day, I was giving a speech to a group of women's entrepreneurs in Baltimore, Maryland, and there were around 1,000 women in the room and 2 men, the security guard and me. Okay, I gave the speech.
Was it a comfortable situation or rather uncomfortable?
Okay, it's fine. I gave the speech because I had launched a program in the bank for lines of credit for women's entrepreneurs, and that's okay. And actually, I was opening the conference, and by the end of the day, the closing would be made by at that time the Vice President Al Gore. Anyway, I was there. I finished. There was a very enthusiastic lady, who came to me amongst others and complimented. I was not able to see her presentation. I had just arrived, etc. But I've heard that it was a very good presentation. Congratulations, etc. So yes. And you are president, I understand, of Bank Boston for the yes. And she said, but there is an information which is wrong about you, which is circulating, and probably you should clarify that to people. Said, what information? Said, they are saying that you are Brazilian. Yeah, and evidently you cannot be Brazilian and be president of Bank Boston. I said, no, I am Brazilian, yes. So, come on, it's not possible. Bank Boston, no. It's very traditional, very conservative. I said, well, that happened, things are changing. She said, Bank Boston, no. She said, my grandfather was the largest depositor at the bank during his period when he was working, etc. And he wanted to meet with the full director, full board of the bank. He was never able to do that. And evidently they didn't say why, but his understanding is that was because he was Irish. And I said, look, things changed, etc. She said, no, Bank Boston, no. And then when she left, I asked another woman, said, who's her? She said, oh, it's Kathleen Kennedy. The grandfather was a little joke, and she was a sister of President Robert Kennedy Jr., the health secretary there. But she wrote a letter to the Senate advising the Senate not to confirm him because she doesn't approve his opinions today. But in summary, that very interesting situation at that time. And I watched it, I went to see, I asked for the information, and apparently she was right regarding that question of having father.
Interesting. I think we have to ask at least one insolvency related question. And we have that discussion all the time, all over the world, in Europe with the harmonization of insolvency laws, and we had it on Sunday. What do you, as a former finance minister, consider is the goal of an insolvency proceedings, or are the goals of an insolvency proceeding?
Sorry, what?
The goals, what is an insolvency proceeding for? Because the opinions are rather like conservative insolvency proceedings should just deal with the debtor-creditor relation, and the other, let's say, pole would be insolvency proceedings should include public policy and whatever social aspects, environmental aspects, newly. So where would you see the role of an insolvency law, an insolvency proceeding?
The law of?
Insolvency law and insolvency proceedings. From a political point of view.
Well, I tend to take using the English meaning of the word, not the American one. I take the liberal view of that, which is more open government and free market, and let the free market forces determine, and to have less government intervention, where possible. And the government keeps keeping the focus on creating the basic rules, etc., and the basic complementary problem, but not trying to be the driving force in the economy, for instance, which is somewhat the view of the Brazilian government today.
Which is also somehow the view of the German government and the German system, so I appreciate your answer.
Yeah.
We have that recorded.
Do you see, since we have you, I have another restructuring, insolvency, bankruptcy question, which is obviously in the past couple of years, Brazil has passed very large reforms that have been, I think, generally seen as successful. Do you see, from an economic standpoint, do you see any correlation between the strength of the Brazilian economy and the fact that there are these restructuring and bankruptcy and insolvency reforms that have been passed in the past couple of years?
Yeah, that was one of the important reforms that I was referring to in my speech. Exactly, insolvency rules and becoming more effective, etc. This is what is being very important for them.
We mentioned several times the law 412,
Yes.
in 2020 changed the regime. Well, Henrique, when he was minister, he gathered a group to draft this reform, and he was kind enough participated of the group.
So he was at the center. You were at the center of a lot of these reforms, which is
Yeah,
great.
so this modernization, which happened in 2020, is owing to a decision which he took as minister, And,
Very important.
Yeah. Of course, in my view, it could have gone a little bit further, but we'll get there.
We'll get it. Well, you always have a question you'd like to ask our interviewees.
Yes. Still one question before that. You mentioned that bureaucracy is a big obstacle and a big problem for businesses. Are you still optimistic that in a democratic system, maybe even in a federal system, it is possible to reduce bureaucracy?
Yeah, it is. It is. For instance, in Brazil, we had a question for opening a new company, only to register that. It demanded about 2 months or so registration. And some reforms were implemented where I was in the government. I had a study actually conducted by the World Bank at my request. We had a joint task force working together with them. And the fact is, for instance, in Sao Paulo, for instance, we did implement fully some of these. In some cities, now, instead of 2 months or so, we spend hours to register a company, etc., in Jutas Comerciais, etc. And that is happening, and that's a very important thing.
That makes me very hopeful for Germany, because I'm getting more and more pessimistic from time to time. Maybe we come to that as well. Now, the question you were referring to,
Yes.
that is a question we always ask our interview guests. Is there any book or any books that you would recommend, maybe a young professional or somebody who enters into the profession to read, that were influential for you?
Well, I read so many books that I
Probably.
to choose.
Right, exactly.
Difficult, yeah.
It's the question of which one is your favorite child. There's no good answer for that one.
Maybe the Harvard negotiation model, because you mentioned that was one I really appreciated very much.
Yeah,
when I read that.
yeah, that's important.
Okay, so
Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It was wonderful to have you here. Thank you for spending some time this morning with us.